And welcome to This is USG. I'm Khademian, Executive Director of the Universities at Shady Grove. 9 universities, 1 campus, great results. So often when we think of a museum, we think of a physical space or a place that we go to see or learn about something very specific. But what if a museum is much more than a place that focuses on one subject or another, but rather a unique, engaging experience that allows kids and families to participate in real hands-on or distance learning opportunities that stretch the mind of a maker, and in the process can cultivate creativity, curiosity, and compassion for the world around them. Joining me to discuss the amazing Kid Museum, one of USG's newest community partners, is its visionary founder and CEO, Cara Lesser. Cara, welcome to This is USG.
Thank you, Anne. I am thrilled to be here to talk with you today. Thank you for including me in this.
Absolutely. Let's start with your background and how you came to this. I know you started out in healthcare. You were working in the federal government around healthcare and working in the world of policy and health. But I've also read where you have highlighted the importance of education that focuses on building compassionate leaders, creative leaders, leaders who are tuned into the world around them and have, an ability to problem solve. What took you from the world of healthcare and policy to founding the Kid Museum?
Yeah. Well, no straight line in anyone's life, right? Mine is definitely an example of that. But so, I always was someone driven by social impact. That's always has been the sort of goal in my life and work from as a when I was in high school and college and my sort of professional pursuits right after. I think for me, it feels like there's more of a through line than you might expect. But I did start my career in the world of health policy, had a 20 plus year career in that field, where I was working to implement health reform as part of the Obama administration. And it was an incredible experience, but also a moment where I felt like we could have done a lot more, and that the people I was surrounded by, there was incredible thoughtfulness and focus on the details. But at the end of the day, there was a sort of creative courage that we needed to take a greater leap than I felt like we were able to at that time. And in parallel, in my personal life, I had 2 young children who were just transitioning out of play-based preschool and into the world of K-12 education. And I was stunned by how in the box it still was, despite a lot of attention at the time to a creativity crisis and concerns about how we build and really foster these 21st century skills. What I was seeing in my kids' introduction to elementary schooling was very traditional, very worksheet based. And the disconnect between these two things of what I was seeing in my professional life and what I was seeing in my personal life really got to me. And I felt like just on a visceral level that I could make a greater difference in the world by focusing my professional energy on how in this community we could start to try to address this and create more opportunity for kids to really develop that creative courage in a meaningful way, that this isn't about a cheerleading speech but how do you build those capacities, the technical skills, but also the mindset and the capabilities to push through some really complex problems. And I mean, if COVID has taught us so many things, but one of them is just the complexity of the problems that we're facing as a society. And I feel like there is so much more work to be done to prepare the next generation to really meaningfully engage in solving those problems with and for all of us.
So I love the term creative courage. It really, to be creative is one thing, to do it courageously is another, and or at least to believe in your ideas, to believe in your ability to create. The Kid Museum is built around the maker mindset and maker education. Let's explore that a little bit. Tell me what it means to be a maker. There's a whole set of ideas that infuse into that concept and that really animate the work of the Kid Museum. Talk to us a little bit about maker and what maker education is all about.
Yeah. On some level, it's very straightforward, and we all learn by making things. That's how we first learn things, and so it is a little bit of get back to how do we learn through the experience of taking on a project and thinking through from start to finish the parts, the pieces, how you can physically make something, how you imagine something, how you actually create the pieces and then continue to iterate on an idea to improve on it, how you do that in collaboration with others. So really, a maker at the end of the day is about being a creative problem solver and an innovator. And really with the kids we work with, for students, when our focus is primarily kindergarten through 8th grade, it's really having the opportunity to explore across a wide range of tools and materials, all of the digital tools and materials that are accessible to kids today, and coding and really building the digital space, but also building with wood and textiles and putting those things together, right? And it does kind of force the brain to function in a different way and make connections in a different way. And those are really the sort of aptitudes and capacities that we are trying to enable through this work. That it is about creative problem solving in community with empathy to make the world a better place, and with courage to act with a sense of agency and responsibility. So they're big, heady concepts that come together in a very natural and engaging and fun way of learning and interacting with people.
I think this problem focus is so important, and the connection to empathy for community and those around you. When you're solving problems, you're helping people, you're helping those around you. And so I think that's such an important part of the focus of the museum. There's a sense of making your world a better place and solving the problems around you. And so just an amazing concept and philosophy. Is that something that you embraced right off the bat when you were building the Kid Museum? Is that something that has grown as the museum has grown and as you've kind of developed that space and your partnerships? How has that concept evolved for you?
Yeah. So it really, those were the foundational concepts. I think that as the world has evolved, we've had more connection points and anchors to ground them in. But it really has been about, as you alluded to in your opening, enabling that creativity, fueling the ongoing curiosity, but then linking that to compassion. And that it's really with a focus on how do you take the all of that sort of energy around creative problem solving and focus it in a way that can make the world a better place. So from the beginning, that has been our focus, is engaging kids and understanding their place in the world, a sense of global citizenship to really leverage our collective talents and capabilities to move the world in a way that makes all of us better off.
So it's beautiful. Listening to you talk about the experience of your kids, doing kind of workbook things and, not very interactive. And then I've had the wonderful opportunity of seeing some of these classes, some of these maker spaces in action here at
Mhm.
USG, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. But as I watch the energy that's in that room, the creativity, it's just amazing. Tell me how this works in partnership, though. You operate in a lot of different locations. You
Mhm.
operate with MCPS, Montgomery County Public Schools. You operate with USG. You have lots of partners. Tell us what the model is for the Kid Museum. There's this brand new space that you have, this 28,000 square foot at 3 Bethesda Metro Place, which is amazing, which we'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that as well. But you operate out in a lot of, it's not just that space where the maker mindset happens. Tell us what the model is. How does this work? How do you work with your partners to bring this vision to fruition?
Yeah, it really is a community model. As you know, as you're saying, it's much more than a place, and we need a place. We need, and hopefully we're all back to in person as our main way of interacting again, right? Um, and that is at the heart of, we want people who wouldn't necessarily come together in the same school, in the same neighborhood, in the same library, to have an opportunity to come together and engage meaningfully in these types of experiences. So it is work that ideally takes place in spaces and in community. But for us, it really is about building in partnership with so many different organizations and individuals, right? And it is about, working together to co-create these experiences that really are, with MCPS as an example, embedded in what happens in the school day. Those are precious hours for all of us, right? That kind of 9 to 3 time is the high quality time, right? And for MCPS to invite us in as meaningful partners in that time with their students to say, you know what, we can think differently about what learning looks like in this time. And when students have the opportunity to work deeply on a project that they care about and are driven by their own interests, they will pursue it. They will chase down what they need to chase down, to measure what they need to measure, to build the invention that they want to build, to figure out how to make those electronics work, to make something light up. And so it's definitely a different kind of learning that I think our partners have been. It really has been co-designed with the individual school leaders, teachers, as well as at the district level. And then, partners like USG are just instrumental in unlocking the potential for this community to really change together what learning looks like. So we are, definitely have aspirations that go well beyond any four walls we could imagine. And the only way that we can really pursue this vision is meaningfully in partnership with so many different individuals and organizations. Just as another example, from the very beginning, we've partnered with numerous cultural organizations that represent cultural heritage in our community and have partnered in how do we engage their own communities as well as the community at large in sharing and celebrating culture. And that's a big part of our work, is promoting this really radical inclusion and cultural empathy from a very young age, and creating experiences that really foster that as a deep experience for youth, families, and the community. So the partnerships have been a core to our model from the beginning, but I think now as we enter this post-COVID era, it's even more important because the need for this kind of learning is just incredible, and we need to be able to respond and get it out there as extensively as possible.
Yeah, I'm so glad you focused on the challenges now. I mean, there are always challenges in our world, right? But coming out of a global pandemic with the challenges that we face, not only scientifically responding, but responding in terms of getting the vaccine out and most importantly, trying to continue to educate children through this time. And We know that there were millions of children who fell through the cracks during this time, who didn't have access to online education, who, were not able to have that kind of that kind of experience of keeping them going, keeping them at least connected and engaged throughout the pandemic. The Kid Museum now is in this space of being able to help address some of the challenges that we faced during the pandemic, not only in terms of addressing the gaps. Some kids missed as much as 5 to 9 months of learning, if fell back during this time. So there's addressing the gaps, but there's also, maybe this is a moment for really kind of adjusting the way our schools think about education and the way our schools think about teaching. Could you talk about how you're, coming out of the pandemic, you had your own experience during the pandemic of getting the Kid Museum online. Love to hear you talk about that. Yeah. And then let's shift a little bit to thinking about what you see going forward in terms of being able to address some of these major gaps that have always been there, but have been accentuated by the pandemic going forward.
Yeah. Well, yes, we had to pivot like so many others. I hate to say that term, right? But it really was a hard shift for us of we are hands-on maker in-person learning space that was hit by the global pandemic like everyone else. So we we had to practice what we preach as makers and reinvent how we delivered this type of programming. And just incredible kudos to our education team that, said, we're going to figure this out. We cannot hand kids a drill online, but there is a lot we can do. And, we quickly started experimenting with what, and really the majority of the work that we did over the past year and a half was synchronous learning. So really having our educators still in the virtual room with students, either in a traditional classroom, in the virtual classroom with their classroom teacher, or just on our own. But we're a lifeline for kids to just reconnect with a fun way of learning during this time. So we did send out kits that were like presents kids were getting in the mail of, fun things to build with, and some everyday kind of materials, but also things like a circuit kit or a microcontroller and things that kids might not have at home. So getting them building and activated in ways, and getting them to collaborate with their peers in ways that they really were not able to. So we're very proud of what we're able to make happen in the virtual space. Also very happy to move into a space that will hopefully have some more in-person programming with the virtual now going forward. So to your question about, what's next, and it is an incredible time for schools to help students, not only get back on track in terms of their academics, but reconnect with their peers, reconnect with what it means to be in school and in a broader community, that there's just been such isolation for so many kids. And then hopefully leapfrog forward, that it's not just about making up for lost time. So I think that is where we're partnering with MCPS and in conversations with other districts in the region about how we really can support math, in particular math, some of the science gaps from this past year, and literacy. That there's really, it's this, again, the project-based learning that maker learning is kind of grounded in is just a natural way to reinforce so many of the core academics, but at the same time support the social emotional learning that's been lost. So we are working extensively with Montgomery County Public Schools to bring maker learning into the classroom in multiple elementary and middle schools this year as part of the COVID recovery effort. And, thrilled to have this new program space that you were alluding to earlier to help us host many more school visits, hopefully this year and certainly beyond.
Yeah, I want to see school buses every day rolling up to USG with kids pouring into the maker labs here. So,
We love it. I mean, it was fantastic seeing those kids in those spaces, the beautiful maker spaces that you have, and just seeing how just walking into the space validated them as makers and validated that, these middle schoolers coming into a space that's a university designed for older students, but they came in and they had a blast in there. And I think a lot of learning, and I think our side product is the teachers are learning too, and that's something we're excited to go deeper on with USG and MCPS going forward, is engaging more teachers and how to bring maker learning into the classroom and supporting that as a way that can continue to grow in this post-COVID time and beyond.
yeah, that's where I think there's so much, well, there's wonderful potential everywhere with this, but I'm really excited to learn more about, teaching the teachers
Mhm.
and how you're thinking about that. This kind of professional development opportunity, it's a great opportunity for teachers to expand their learning, their educational skills, their toolkit for teaching in that sense, even shifting their mindset a little bit in terms of how they approach what they do. Can you talk a little bit about the way you're approaching teaching the teachers, and how does that fit into the overall Kid Museum model?
Yeah, yeah. So this is really an integral part of our model. I will say this was something that was not on the original plan, but has grown into the original plan because the partnerships with the schools have been so strong, and teachers really um, have been attracted to this. I think there are many, especially at the elementary level. There's a lot of fear factor around STEM teaching, right? And I think that seeing how maker learning can break it down for students helps to break it down for teachers too, and make accessible how a teacher can support their students to really develop this deep fluency in STEM in the context of the maker learning. So um, the way we approach professional development with teachers is really to embed it in our student programs. So teachers are learning with their students. There is a preview, and there's some dedicated professional development time, but really so much of what happens is when we are in the classroom together and teaching students together, that the teachers are really having a firsthand experience themselves and how to support some of this, really that mind of a maker concept. And then we support that with the technical skill building, how to teach using 3D printers or a microcontroller, and the things that teachers might first gravitate toward as the questions of, I don't know how to do this. But it's really, for us, it is about enabling that broader maker mindset and helping teachers have the skills to support their students as learners in that philosophy.
It's so interesting because it's such a flip of the traditional way we think of the classroom, and with the kind of teacher having all the answers and sharing the knowledge with the students. And this is really about enabling the teacher, enabling students to find their own answers and giving them the tools to do that.
Yeah.
And that's super exciting, but I can imagine it's a difficult shift in some cases, and we have whole institutions built around that approach. So the maker mindset has, focusing on teachers is a really great way to do that. Well, speaking of that, one of the things that we're super excited about having the Kid Museum having some footprint in our BSc, our biomedical science and engineering building, is that the opportunity for our students to get exposed to some teaching and some engagement and some experiential learning as teachers, as educators. Can you talk a little bit about how you see that, your partnership with USG? What do you see as the benefits there? What do you see as the opportunities for growing the Kid Museum mission?
Yeah. We are beyond excited about this part of the partnership because we know the incredible talent you have in your student body, and that, these young teachers coming in and getting oriented to what learning can look like and bring incredible passion to the field. And we're excited about the opportunity to really partner with some students to orient more people to what maker learning looks like at the beginning of their career, help break down sort of the scary barriers there may be to what STEM teaching is. No surprise here that I'm a huge believer in we need more teachers. Teachers are the people who make the world go round, and we need to support the teachers in our community who can really connect with kids here as role models and as just inspiration to get them engaged in as being the next generation. So we're very excited to have the opportunity to find those new diamonds in the rough in USG and partner with folks in being a part of delivering our programs, hopefully for credit in their programs and paid positions that get them out in the community, building work, building their resumes and their career experience while they're in school. But I think that it's a real win-win for us to be able to connect with your community of students to help support this vision coming to life in our region.
Yeah, we're so excited about it too, Cara. It's so exciting. You know, we've been doing a lot of talking here lately around entrepreneurship, and we have this wonderful lab for entrepreneurship and transformational leadership, and thinking a lot about the entrepreneurial mindset. And the more I learn about the maker mindset, the more I'm so interested in some of the parallels, especially the problem-solving focus and things. And one of the things that's coming out of this conversation is really the need to be able to demonstrate the impact of this kind of education, whether you're focusing on entrepreneurship or a maker mindset, that these are different ways of approaching, as we've been discussing, different ways of approaching education. It's more about enabling, it's building the agency of the student to, to be able to solve problems and tackle things and be their own teacher in some ways and their own problem solver. And, but, to be able to demonstrate that, it's a real challenge. And you and I have talked about it in the past about the need to research this a little bit differently, that we need to break a few eggs, if you will, in terms of how we think about evaluation, how we think about the impact of these, and, turning our mind to measuring different kinds of things. And I wonder if you could just, think out loud with us a little bit about what kinds of things should we be measuring, and where should we be focusing our attention if we really want this to take hold in a big way. How do we demonstrate that, and what kinds of qualities and strengths and skill sets should we be looking for, in addition to knowing math and science and things? What are some of the other things that we should be looking for in this effort?
Yeah, I think, obviously you need those building blocks of the fundamentals that you spoke about, but to be able to activate those fundamentals, it takes a different set of capacities. And I do think that there are some nascent measures of creative problem solving, creativity in action, right? It's not a IQ score of your forever creative potential, but your actual application of that creative problem solving. And I think the more that we can focus on how we measure that, the more we can focus on how we continue to improve that in our work as educators, right? So I do think that's a really critical part of the equation. Embedded in that, or maybe in parallel, is just that sort of agency and activation that it requires of an entrepreneur or maker, is really someone who is animated by these concepts, right? And it's not, there is no existing formula. And so you have to find it. It comes back to that creative courage, right? The combination of the creativity and the courage, the agency to move things forward and understand how to make connections in collaboration. Everything we do is in collaboration, right? And so I think that there's individual qualities, but there's also kind of qualities of how a team comes together to produce, whether it's create an invention or whatever the latest entrepreneurial venture. I think we have this myth of the individual in our society, and it really is about a team that makes anything happen, right? So understanding how we foster those types of collaboration skills that really push the meaningful creative problem solving and action orientation, I think is important as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad you focus on teams. Again, watching some of the young people, middle
Yeah.
school students here at Shady Grove over the summer, they're all working together. Every now and then one of them will kind of get off and, with their goggles down and, working on something, but they're engaged with their teacher, they're engaged with each other, they're helping each other problem solve, and it really is a collaborative effort. So I'm so glad you focused on that. I want to wrap up by asking you a question that pulls us back kind of to Montgomery County. And, as many people, many leaders, yourself included here in Montgomery County, believe that a strong education is the key to, a strong economy, a sustainable community, an equitable community. And that, if the more we invest in education, the better off we'll be. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how the Kid Museum thinks about its role in this broader economy and in Montgomery County writ large, in really trying to address some of the major equity gaps that we have here. We're one of the most diverse counties in the country, which is it's amazing. It's phenomenal that we're such a diverse, beautiful county here. There's also a lot of challenges. There's also a lot of equity gaps that come along with that. And so how are you thinking about the role of the Kid Museum around workforce development, around, address, some of these broader inequities that exist? Is that too much of a stretch, or how do you think about the Kid Museum in that broader context?
Yeah, no, not a stretch at all. I will say, as a parent seeing my oldest go off to college, it goes quickly, right? And so I think we really see our role at Kid Museum as building bridges to the youngest students, and elementary and middle school experiences set a foundation that we know have just ripple effects for students through their lives. So if we really want as a community to reset on issues of equity and inclusion, I think we have to focus on what happens with students at the youngest age. Even, pre-COVID, we had 50% of Montgomery County public school students not on grade level for reading and math, pre-COVID. So one out of every two third graders were not ready to be on grade level for reading or math. And that was before our COVID experience. To expect that we are going to create an equitable and inclusive society and not address those disparities at a young age is just, it's crazy, right? So we really see ourselves as, in partnership with Montgomery County Public Schools and with Montgomery College and USG and the full continuum of the educational ecosystem here in the county to work proactively to address that. And we really have to build these meaningful pathways for students, but we also have to create the opportunities for them to take advantage of those pathways. And if they are not on grade level by third grade, they often, that continues. Seventh grade, we see it only widen, right? And then by the time they're in high school, they're not taking the advanced electives. They're not taking the classes that really give them the opportunities to take advantage of these incredible resources we have here. So, we really do see the museum as a really important partner with others, as we talked about earlier, right? That we have to do this together. But we feel like the power of maker learning to engage kids at a young age in really developing those fundamental skills that will, build that success over their lifetimes is so instrumental. And so that's where we see that we can contribute from where we sit to help support that broader economic and workforce development set of goals.
That's a great note to wrap up on. Cara, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm so excited about our partnership going forward, USG and the Kid Museum. As you say, busloads of kids coming to USG, students engaged in the teaching experience, and some amazing research going on that helps inform this and hopefully move things forward. So we're honored to be a partner with you, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
Well, likewise, really appreciate your leadership and what the amazing things that USG is already starting to do, and much, much more to come going forward. So thank you for the opportunity to talk today, and for all that we're setting out to do together. We're very excited about it.
Thanks so much.
All right.